Today I'm gonna tell a story. Over a year ago, I did a video on our migration story, and not too long ago, I did another video on our creation story. And in our creation story, I kind of hinted that I was going to do this video, and a theory that I have that the migration story and the creation story at one time were a single story. Because it's bizarre to have a migration story. We're from point A and arriving point B, but have a creation story saying we were created in point B. It's kind of strange to have two stories that seem to conflict. But I believe, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, when we told these stories, this was one continuous story. And over years, the creation part was separated from the migration part and became its own story, probably from a metaphorical context to a more literal context in our beliefs. But this is my interpretation, my version of what I think the story might have looked like 4,000 years ago, as one continuous story instead of two separate stories. So all stories begin. A long time ago, there was a big calamity, a big disaster in our original homeland, and something happened. It was no longer inhabitable. It would not support us as a people, and we had to leave. So two brothers stood up. One was Choctaw and one was Choctaw. They stood up to lead the people out, and helping them was the Hopi. Hopi is like a medicine man. So between two brothers, Choctaw, Choctaw, and Hopi, they chose to lead the people out of this land to a new homeland. So the Hopi had a staff, and he figured if he planted his staff in the ground, the Great Spirit would then tilt that staff in the direction they should go. So every evening, the Hopi would plant the staff in the ground. The people would go to bed, go to sleep, after they make camp. And then the next morning, Choctaw, Choctaw, Hopi would go and look at the staff, and the Great Spirit would then tilt the staff in the direction they're supposed to walk that day. So they did just that. They walked that direction until evening time, set up camp, gonna sleep that night. Hopi got the staff, planted it firmly into the ground. Next morning, again, the Great Spirit tilted that staff in the direction they're supposed to walk. Now, we don't know how long they walked, whether it was months, years. We know it's probably within a generation. We don't know exactly how long or how far. But every evening, that's what the Hopi did. Planted that staff. And every morning, Choctaw and Choctaw and the people got up, they looked at the staff, and the direction it was tilting, that's the direction they would walk. They did it morning after morning for months, maybe years. Now one evening, the sky got dark, and the wind began lashing and the rain pouring, and the people were struggling, trying to get together. Choctaw and Chickasaw, they're both groups, began to accidentally drift apart, and the wind lashed, and in desperation, the Hopi grabbed the staff and they stuck it in the ground, because that's where they're gonna make camp that night, because the storm was coming through, and they didn't have time to make camp. They held onto each other, held on the trees, held on to whatever they could as the wind blew. And the storm came through, and all night long the wind blew and the rain lashed down. Next morning, the storm had passed through, blown through. The Hopi and Choctaw went to examine the staff. Choctaw and his group migrated. They were lost out in the wilderness somewhere. They're lost. They were not there at the time because the two groups had separated. But Choctaw and Hopi looked at the staff, and the staff was standing straight up. No lean either way. So they knew that's where the Great Spirit wanted them to stay. That was their new homeland. So over time, they relocated Choctaw and his group. They reunited, and nearby was a mound, this large mound. So Choctaw and Choctaw and the people climbed on top of this big mound, to survey, to look out over their new land, new home. And the sun came down, and they were wet, they were tired, they were just went through a ordeal of migrating, and then the storm that came through, and they was risking their lives. They stood on top of this hill, this big hill, dried off in the sunshine, and for that point on, who we were when we left our homelands, the name we call ourselves, which we don't even know today, it's been so long, but who we were was no longer. From that day on, those who followed Choctaw were the Choctaw people. Those who followed Chickasaw became Chickasaw, the Chickasaw people. And over time, the Choctaw and Chickasaw, we migrated away. We were neighbors, we remained neighbors. But Choctaw and his group chose to stay there near the mound and call it Naniwea. And Chickasaw and his group migrated further, I believe it was northeast, and remained neighbors. And that is our migration and our rebirth as the Choctaw people, as the Chickasaw people, as our recreation, as though we were reborn and recreated into this new people, new culture. Because the culture we had before was left behind, forgotten. And where we are now, our homeland now, Naniwea, that is the new culture, the new way of life that we had to learn, and today even keep teaching to our younger generations, so they don't forget these ways. So this is a story that I believe may have been told 2,000-3,000 years ago as one story. And over the years, our migration story was migration story, and our creation story was us being reborn from Naniwea. So hope you enjoyed. I think it's good to tell stories, but also it's good to not only tell the old stories, but it's important to create new stories sometimes. Get old stories, and when you see old stories, put a new, because the Choctaw Nation, Chickasaw Nation, the indigenous populations of America, it's not a stagnant culture. We're not stagnant. A lot of times when a people is ruled over, and the language is taken away and the culture is taken away, the people become stagnant. There's no more cultural evolution. But when you maintain your language, maintain your stories, maintain your sovereignty, maintain who you are maintaining a cultural evolution. The stories we used to tell, keep telling them, but don't forget, tell new stories, create new stories, because generations from now, 2,000-3,000 years from now, these stories we tell now, the stories we teach now and create now, those will be the stories from a long time ago, 2,000 years from now. So that's all I have. Hope you enjoyed. Tabisa la Chiki.
Hiya,